My name is David, and I'm 42 years old. The story I'm about to share with you happened 3 years ago, but it changed everything I thought I knew about family, sacrifice, and what really matters in life. I was sitting in my small apartment on a Tuesday evening when my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice had that careful tone that mothers use when they're about to tell you something difficult. "David, honey, can you come over this weekend? Your father and I need to talk to you about something important." My stomach dropped. At 39 years old back then, those words still had the power to make me nervous. Were they sick? Was something wrong with the house? My mind raced through possibilities as I agreed to visit. That Saturday, I drove the familiar route to my childhood home. The maple trees lining the driveway were just starting to turn orange and gold. Fall had always been my favorite season here. I remembered jumping in leaf piles with my younger sister Rachel when we were kids. She was 35 then, married to a wonderful man named Marcus for 6 years. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Her face was drawn, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. Dad stood behind her in the hallway, his hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "Come in, son," he said quietly. We settled in the living room where I'd spent countless Sunday afternoons. The same floral couch, the same family photos on the mantel, but something felt different. Heavy. Mom sat forward, her hands clasped tightly together. Dad placed his hand on her shoulder. "David, you know Rachel and Marcus have been trying to have a baby for years now." I nodded. Of course I knew. Rachel had confided in me about their struggles with infertility. I'd seen the hope drain from her eyes after each failed attempt, each disappointment. My sister, who had always been so full of life and laughter, had grown quieter over the years. "They've decided to try in vitro fertilization," Mom continued. "It's their last real chance to have a biological child." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for them. "I know how much this means to Rachel." Mom's eyes filled with tears. That's when I knew something else was coming. "The thing is, David, their insurance won't cover it. The procedure costs about $30,000. They've saved some, but they're still $20,000 short." I waited. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. "Your father and I, we wanted to help them. We needed to help them." Her voice cracked. "So we used the money we'd set aside for you." The words hung in the air. I heard them, but my brain struggled to process what they meant. "I'm sorry, what money?" Dad finally spoke up. "The college fund we started for you when you were born. We never told you about it because we wanted it to be a surprise someday. Maybe for a house down payment, or if you wanted to go back to school for that master's degree you talked about. My college fund. A fund I never knew existed. Money that was meant for my future, now gone." I sat there feeling like the floor had tilted beneath me. Not because I felt entitled to money I didn't know about, but because they'd made this decision without even telling me. Without asking, without giving me a chance to be part of the choice. "We used your college fund for your sister's IVF," Mom said again, her voice barely a whisper. "We knew you'd understand eventually, even if you were upset at first." Rachel, who had been sitting quietly in the corner chair, finally spoke. She'd been there the whole time, and I hadn't even noticed. Her eyes were red, but she was smiling. That surprised me more than anything. "You'll understand someday, David," she said softly. "When you have children of your own, you'll know why this mattered so much." Something hot flared in my chest. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to say it was okay, that I understood, that family comes first. I opened my mouth and said one word: refund. The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" Mom's face went pale. "Refund," I repeated, standing up. "Get me a refund of that money, David, please," Dad started, but I held up my hand. "You took money that was saved for me, money I didn't even know about, and gave it to Rachel without asking me, without even telling me until after it was done. You want me to understand? Fine. But if you can make decisions about my money without consulting me, then I can ask for it back." Rachel's smile had vanished. David, the procedure is already scheduled. We've started the medications. The money's committed. Then uncommit it, I said, my voice harder than I intended. I'm sure the clinic offers some kind of refund policy. Mom started crying in earnest now. David, this is your sister's only chance to have a baby. How can you be so cruel? That word, cruel, hit me like a slap. I'd spent my whole life being the understanding one, the flexible one, the one who went with the flow because Rachel needed more attention, more help, more everything. And now I was cruel for wanting to be included in a decision about my own money? I need some air, I said, and walked out of the house. I drove home in a daze. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Mom, Dad, Rachel, even Marcus. I ignored them all. That night, I lay awake replaying the conversation. Was I being selfish? The money could give Rachel the family she desperately wanted. But something deeper bothered me. It wasn't really about the money at all. It was about being erased. About my dreams and future being considered less important than my sister's. About decisions being made for me, about me, without me. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. I finally answered when my Aunt Helen, Mom's older sister, called. David, I heard what happened. I wanted you to know something. You're not wrong to feel hurt. Those words, that validation, made my eyes sting with tears I'd been holding back. But Aunt Helen, everyone thinks I'm being selfish. Are you asking for the money back because you need it or because you're hurt? I was quiet for a long moment. I'm hurt. They didn't even tell me the fund existed until it was gone. Then that's what you need to tell them. Not threats about refunds, but the truth about how you feel. She was right. I'd reacted out of pain and shock, demanding a refund I didn't really want or need. What I wanted was for my family to see me, to consider me, to value me as much as they valued Rachel. I called a family meeting at my apartment that weekend. Mom, Dad, Rachel, and Marcus all came, though the tension was thick enough to cut. I need to say something, I started, my voice steadier than I felt. I don't actually want the money back. I never did. But when you told me about the fund, about using it for Rachel's IVF, it felt like you erased me from the family equation. David, we never meant, Mom began, but I gently interrupted. Please, let me finish. My whole life, Rachel's needs have come first. She needed braces. I got them 2 years later. She needed a car for college. I took the bus. She needed help with her wedding. I paid for my own small ceremony out of pocket. I never complained because I understood she needed more support. But this time, with the college fund, you didn't even give me the chance to help my sister myself. You just decided my future was less important than hers. Rachel was crying now. David, I never knew you felt this way. I thought you were okay with everything. I was okay with it, but being okay with something and being asked about it are different things. You're my sister. I love you. If you'd come to me and said you needed help with IVF, I would have given you every penny I had. But you didn't ask. None of you did. Dad cleared his throat. Son, you're right. We should have talked to you first. We thought we were protecting you from having to make a difficult choice. But that wasn't your choice to make, Dad. I'm not a child anymore. Marcus, who'd been quiet, finally spoke. David, we can postpone the procedure. We can figure out another way. I don't want this money if it costs Rachel her relationship with her brother. Something shifted in that moment. Rachel looked at her husband with such love, then turned to me. I don't want this baby if it means losing you, David. You're right. We should have asked. I should have asked. I got so desperate, so focused on having a child, that I forgot I already have family that matters. I walked over and hugged my sister, really hugged her, the way we used to when we were kids and she'd fall off her bike or have a bad day at school. Rachel, I want you to have this baby. I want to be an uncle. But I also want to be seen as part of this family, not just as the easy one who always understands. Over the next few weeks, we talked more than we had in years. Real conversations about feelings and needs and old resentments I didn't even know I'd been carrying. Mom apologized for always expecting me to be the strong one. Dad admitted they'd taken me for granted because I never complained. Rachel and I worked out a plan together. The $20,000 from my college fund would cover part of the IVF. I would contribute $5,000 from my savings, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. They would take out a small loan for the rest, which Marcus insisted on. They wanted me to feel like a partner in this journey, not just a bank account. I want this baby to know their Uncle David helped bring them into the world, Rachel said, squeezing my hand. But not just with money, with love and choice. The IVF procedure was scheduled for 2 months later. I went with Rachel and Marcus to the clinic. I held my sister's hand during the egg retrieval, waited with Marcus during the transfer, and was there for every appointment. It wasn't easy. The first attempt didn't take. We all grieved together. But instead of pushing me away or handling it alone, Rachel called me when she needed to cry. I was included in her pain, not just expected to fix it. The second attempt, 6 months later, was successful. When Rachel called to tell me she was pregnant, I cried harder than I had in years. Not just because I was going to be an uncle, but because I'd been part of the journey. "Thank you," she whispered through her own tears. "Not for the money, David. Thank you for making me see what really matters." My nephew Henry was born 9 months later. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, with Rachel's eyes and Marcus's smile. When they handed him to me in the hospital, Mom leaning on Dad's shoulder, everyone exhausted and happy, I felt something I'd been missing for years. I felt seen. "You know what's funny?" I said, cradling Henry carefully. "If you'd asked me from the beginning, if you'd included me in the decision, I would have given you everything without hesitation." "I know," Rachel said. "That's why we should have asked. We forgot that love isn't just about sacrifice. It's about respect, too." Henry is 3 years old now. He calls me Uncle Davy and insists I read him the same dinosaur book every time I visit. Rachel and Marcus are talking about trying for a second child, and this time, they asked me first if I wanted to contribute to the fund they're building. I said yes, not because I had to, but because they asked. My relationship with my parents is different now too. Better. We talk about things instead of assuming. Mom checks in about my life, not just to be polite, but because she genuinely wants to know. Dad and I went fishing last month, and he apologized again for making me feel invisible all those years. "You raised me to be independent and understanding," I told him. "You did a good job, but I'm glad you see me now." Looking back, I don't regret saying that one word. Refund. It was harsh, born from hurt, but it opened a door to conversations we needed to have. Sometimes you have to break things a little to rebuild them stronger. The college fund is gone, used for its ultimate purpose, bringing new life and new understanding into our family. I never did go back for that master's degree, but I got something more valuable. I got a family that sees me, that includes me, that values me not just for what I can give, but for who I am. Last Sunday, Henry asked me why everyone calls the money Uncle David's college fund if it helped make him. "Because," Rachel said, picking him up and tickling his belly, "Uncle David was smart enough to teach us that the best things in life happen when we ask instead of assume." "What does assume mean?" Henry asked, his face scrunched in concentration. "It means thinking you know what someone wants without asking them," I explained. "And it's always better to ask." "Did you want me, Uncle Davy?" he asked with that brutal honesty only children possess. I looked at my sister, at my parents, at this little boy who'd brought our family back together through the mess and hurt and healing. More than anything, buddy, more than anything, that's the truth of it. I wanted to be part of bringing him into the world. I just needed to be asked first, to be valued, to be seen. And now I am. The leaves are turning again this fall, orange and gold, just like that day 3 years ago when everything broke loose. But this time, when I drive up to my parents' house, Henry comes running out, his little legs pumping, yelling, "Uncle Davy!" at the top of his lungs. Rachel follows behind, laughing, one hand on her belly where baby number 2 is growing. They asked me about contributing this time. I said yes. But more importantly, they asked, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to let them take you for granted. Sometimes love means standing up and saying, I matter too. Not selfishly, but truthfully. And sometimes, just sometimes, one word is enough to change everything. Refund. Not because I wanted the money back, but because I wanted my family back. And I got them. All of them. Better than before. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or if you've learned the hard way that communication matters more than assumption, I'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more real stories about family, love, and the courage it takes to speak your truth. Leave a comment below about a time you had to stand up for yourself and your family. Your story matters, and I'd be honored to read it.